Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the Irish Guys podcast YouTube channel, and welcome back to the Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music listeners. So I've been doing these sort of YouTube videos for a few days now, a few different videos, and then I just remembered that the podcast stuff is kept at my house, so I could instead, I could record this also, so I have, a mic, the podcast equipment set up. So I'll continue to put them out on YouTube for the time being as well, and I'll throw them out now on the podcast sites. I was trying to learn how to extract audio from video, and I just was being stupid as fuck. So I have the podcast equipment. Vesti and them boys don't have it. It's kept here, so I may as well just put the mic in front of me and then throw it out in the podcast platforms as well, since I've done a few of these now, for the time being. So that's where I'm at. I'm still trying to get the hang of all this and all that crack. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do from now on. I think I'll keep putting them out on the YouTube, and I'll then, I've got the mic and stuff recording now too. So yeah. Well, anyway, everybody knows the crack. We're sort of trying to make do as best we can with the restrictions that we have and stuff like that. So, we're getting by at least a little bit. Dev surfaced and was playing Call of Duty last night and forgot about the Skype call. So yeah, Dev things. But yeah, we'll get the big man on at some point shortly, and we'll hopefully be back in the room and recording soon enough. But yeah, thought I'd do one today. Obviously, today is the Wednesday the 20th. And there's a fight this weekend. We done these sort of little build up. Vesti, Tom, Dev have all sort of been kind enough to sort of let me ramble away about some of the fights that have come up. We've done a few boxing ones, Tyson Fury. We've done a few UFC ones as well. So they've been kind enough to let me sort of sit and ramble away about them. On the week of the fight. So yeah, there's a fight this weekend. UFC 257. We've got Poirier versus McGregor 2. So I thought I'd just, do a little short one and do what we usually do. Just a little bit of a fight breakdown, what I think, if that matters, and, just a wee run through. So yeah, Poirier versus McGregor 2. Both these fighters are 32 years of age now. They've kind of come up. They kind of came up at the same time. The sort of early 20 teens, really. McGregor, I think, was signed to the UFC in 2013 or 2014. Dustin Poirier, I think, was signed a little bit before that. They're both the same age. They've both been, they're both seasoned vets now as far as the UFC goes. And, their careers have taken similar paths in certain ways. They both started at featherweight. Moved up to lightweight now, both of them. But they've had a little bit of parallel, even as far as the opponents that they've faced and stuff. Obviously you're going to face the same sort of similar opponents when you're in the same sort of divisions. But they've got wins over similar opponents. They have losses to similar opponents. So they've both done fairly well for themselves in their career. Obviously, McGregor being from Ireland and that, has all the hype in the world. He's done exceedingly well for himself. Poirier's had a little bit more of a what's the way to describe it? Less successful, but fairly successful, no doubt about it. Obviously McGregor's a 2-weight world champion in the UFC. Poirier, sort of his crowning achievement was the interim title. But I just thought I'd get into it. McGregor's 22-4. That's his professional record. Poirier is 26-6-1. They're both about 5'9". So there's not really a reach. I don't think there's going to be a reach advantage. Maybe slightly McGregor. He may be a bit longer. But yeah, it's been an interesting few years for these fellas. Obviously, McGregor has he came back and had actually, when I was looking this up, he made his sort of return to the UFC. And he made it in January 2020. So it's a year now since that. Obviously, there was, all the stuff with COVID and stuff too. So, extra fights or more fights were put off. So, It's been a year since McGregor stepped in the octagon, and he hasn't been as active in this last 4 years as Poirier in any way, shape, or form. His last McGregor's last fight was against Donald Cerrone, another veteran of the UFC. He got the win inside the first round. He broke Donald Cerrone's nose with shoulders and then stopped the fight. Pretty comprehensive win for McGregor. He looks better. He looked better in that fight. Prior to that, obviously, he had the big, massive sort of showdown with Khabib. Everybody knows the result of that fight. He lost sort of rear naked choke, probably. Rear naked choke. I think it was in the fourth round of October in 2018. So, in this last 2 years, he's only fought twice. Prior to that, even back further again, his previous fight to that was Eddie Alvarez, where he won the lightweight title and was the first fighter in the UFC to hold two belts simultaneously. So that was in 2016. He hasn't been entirely active as far as his UFC career in the last 3 or 4 years, and we all know what happened. He won the two belts, and then went to fight Floyd Mayweather, and sort of made all the money he'll ever need in the world. Started his companies and stuff, and I think that saying goes in boxing: it's hard to get punched in the face for a living. It's or something about silk sheets or something. It's difficult when you've made all the money you're ever going to need. You've achieved as much as you have achieved. Do you want to get punched in the face for a living? Getting out of bed and doing road work, I suppose, early in the mornings and stuff isn't really going to be that appealing. When that's the phrase, something about silk sheets. It's hard to get out of bed when you're sleeping in silk sheets. So yeah, that's sort of recent McGregor stuff. Poirier, on the other hand, he's been very active. He had a little bit of an injury. I think he had a hip surgery recently. But yeah, he had he had wins against Justin Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez as well, Max Holloway. Then he had his loss to Khabib, which is sort of similar to McGregor. And then he had a return fight last June against Dan Hooker, and he won by unanimous decision. So that's his last fight. To talk about common opponents, then maybe I suppose they both lost to Khabib. They both were submitted. But they also have wins, against a similar men. Eddie Alvarez, for example, and Dustin Poirier has 2 wins over Max Holloway, and McGregor has a win over Max Holloway. These two have fought before. They fought in the featherweight ranks when they were both younger, when they were both on the come up, really. Sort of after, I think it was McGregor's 4th fight in the UFC that he fought Dustin Poirier. It was an interesting one. McGregor kind of came in and joined the UFC and steamrolled everybody in the featherweight division. He joined, ran through a few people, Brandao, Marcus Brimage, who else was before? I think it might have been Max Holloway as well, and then he fought Dustin Poirier. It was a big event. It was in Vegas, as far as I can recall, and yeah, there was a good bit of build up to it, and I think the result of the fight was that McGregor stopped Poirier in the first round. Now things have definitely changed for Dustin Poirier. He stayed at featherweight as McGregor did for quite a while, and then as you get older and you get bigger, stronger, more muscle, you usually move up a division, or that's kind of the way things work. So he moved up to lightweight, which is where this fight's being contested at, and it's been good for him. He, as I said, his most recent wins. He went on a run. He beat Justin Gaethje, who fought for the lightweight world title against Khabib. Then he beat Eddie Alvarez, who was a former lightweight champion. Then he beat Max Holloway, which is probably his crowning achievement in his career. He beat Max Holloway for the interim lightweight belt, and Max Holloway's a superstar. You only have to see as recently as last week how good Max Holloway is. Max maybe looked a little bit too small for lightweight, nearly. I think but Max Holloway's a great fighter and one of the best featherweights of all time. So yeah, he had a win against him and won the lightweight title. Max was stepping up to try and do what McGregor did, really. Um, and then that led on to his sort of title unification, really, or whatever way you want to describe it. He fought Khabib, who was the lightweight champion, and Max was Dustin was the interim. He took the loss anyway, but they've been similar. They've been on, they've been around. That they fought each other. They fought a lot of similar opponents. They have sort of similar results against similar opponents, and I'm really looking forward to this one. Like things really have changed. In the first fight in 2014, I feel like McGregor got in Poirier's head a little bit. This was when McGregor was on his tear. He came in, he was knocking everybody out in the first round. I think he actually tore his knee ligaments, and that's the only real reason that he went the distance with Max Holloway early on. But he was coming in, he was knocking everybody out in the first round. He was brash, he was confident, he was cocky, and that kind of annoyed Poirier. That's what McGregor does. It's building the fight. It is what it is. But things have definitely changed. Poirier looks much better, much healthier at lightweight. He never won the featherweight title. He won the lightweight title, interim as it was. But he's looked much better from moving up. His body looks better. He has more power now, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where this fight goes. It's a good matchup. It's a real good matchup. Both these fighters like to stand. They like to trade. They're good strikers. But I'll get into Poirier a little bit as far as this fight goes. So Poirier's best aspect, of his game, I wouldn't hesitate to guess is his boxing. He's a good boxer, as Dustin Poirier. I wouldn't say he's a great maybe striker, as far as like using all of his anatomy. You think of maybe the likes of John Jones as a ultimate striker. He can use his knees, his legs, his elbows. Now Poirier is maybe not just that, but he's a really good boxer. He's got good hands, and I think that's really his best attribute. He has jiu-jitsu, but all these guys, they train in all aspects of martial arts, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, some Muay Thai, I suppose, as well, and stuff like that. But Poirier's best attribute is his boxing. It's fantastic. His move up to 155 has been really good for him. It has really helped. He's just carrying the weight better. He's carrying it much better. It's led to a lot more power in his punches. He's not sort of depleting himself. His body just looks better. It feels right at the weight class. And as I said, you can then put more weight behind your punches. You can your cardio is probably better now, and less affected by having to drop a serious amount of weight. And he just looks really good. He's much more powerful now. He really hits and hurts people. Like his fight against Max Holloway, he was fantastic. And Max Holloway is a really good boxer as well, a really good striker. If you watched any of Max Holloway's bout last weekend, you'll see how high level he is, and Dustin Poirier, beat him in a unanimous decision. And that was a slugfest. It was a hell of a fight. But, he's just carrying it much better now. That's where he was hurting Max Holloway a lot more. Max has kind of got endurance and striking, but maybe he hasn't got the knockout power, whereas Poirier was really hitting and hurting Max Holloway. And he's just much more powerful at this weight class. As I said, things have changed. They're older fighters now. Both these guys are 32. Max has been about a long time in the UFC, and he's much more experienced. He's been in big fights now. McGregor sort of seemed to take to the limelight, take to the big fights immediately. He wanted it. He wanted it put on him. I feel like early in Dustin's career, that was his first real big build-up fight. There was media, there was everything surrounding the McGregor fight, even as far back as then, was massive, and maybe that got them a little bit. He looked a little bit nervous when he got into the octagon. He looked a little bit, just a little off. He was nervous. He didn't really throw too well, and then McGregor just looked comfortable, cool, calm, and collected. And he did. McGregor got in his head. There's all the clips from the old Embedded series, where he's sort of saying, "I really hate this guy. I really want to knock him out. I don't think I have disliked anybody else more that I've fought." So McGregor got in his head, no doubt about it. But Dustin's a seasoned pro now at this stage. Them sort of antics, I don't think will have any bearing in this fight. He's been about. He's fought Khabib. He's fought for a world title, and I don't think that anything that McGregor can do now, as far as trying to mind games and throw him off, is going to work. He's been about too long. He's seen it all and done it all now. Has Dustin Poirier. What I didn't know is that he's been training with. I think it's an interesting little nugget that he's been training with Jorge Masvidal. Jorge's a big fella, and he's it's a good sparring partner to have because he can sort of mimic McGregor a little bit. Jorge's very fluid. Can use his legs. He's a good striker. He's a good puncher. Can hit hard as well. Can Jorge, but he's a lot more. As I said, Poirier is a good boxer, but Jorge's a lot more fluid, and that's kind of the way McGregor can be at times. He's very smooth, sort of like a karate stance nearly, and Jorge can give him enough looks in training maybe to sort of mimic a little bit of McGregor, and get him ready for the fight. As far as McGregor goes, if anybody follows the UFC, we know what Conor McGregor's about. Even though he took time away and hasn't been too active, he's still the biggest star the UFC has. And it's his striking that separates him from, his competitors, really. As I said, he's more of an all-round striker probably than Dustin Poirier. But it's one thing that I think that has kind of been sort of missing from his game more recently. I think, as far as I can recall, when this fight happened in 2014, McGregor led, moved to the middle of the octagon and led with like a hook kick. I think that's the correct. Well, he led with a kick anyway that just whizzed over Poirier's head, as far as I can recall anyway. And it's something that maybe hasn't been in McGregor's game in a while. We haven't really seen it, too much, in my opinion. In some of his later fights, like Eddie Alvarez, he didn't really use his legs too much. In the Khabib fight as well, Cerrone. McGregor used to be really, really dangerous with his legs, and not all of them would connect. Not all of them. But even in the Nate Diaz fights, now in the second one, he utilised that sort of low leg kick quite a bit, but that wasn't even something that we had seen McGregor do. It was sort of spinning heel kicks to the body, and as I said, the one with Poirier over the top of his head, and it was dangerous. He kept people honest, he kept people off balance, and it kept people worried. And it's something that he's kind of went away from. Now, I don't know if that's strategic and stuff because he has so much trust and, faith in his left hand and the power that he can generate. And, evidently it does work. But maybe just something, that, I remember him like kicking Chad Mendes in the chest multiple times just to take the wind out of him. So maybe it's something that he can bring back. And it's just not something that we've seen from him an awful lot recently. And I thought it was a different aspect to McGregor's game that really allowed him to be a complete striker. As I said, with his, well, to be fair, he did stop Donald Cerrone with shoulders, but he's a little bit more of a comprehensive striker. Legs, shoulders, elbows and stuff. Maybe more so than Poirier, but Poirier's boxing's good. So this is, this projects to be, a sort of a real good stand-up fight, a real good stand-up bout, and it could be a bit of a war. As I said, Dustin is carrying a lot more power now, something to make McGregor think, and it'll just be interesting to see. Dustin has fought lots more. Now that you can take that in a negative and a positive, maybe less ring rust, just in the flow a little bit better, or you could take it as a negative that he has more miles on the clock. Either way, it could be, proven, and you can do it. You can make an argument for either way. But this is this fight will be won and lost on the feet. I can't see too many men going for too many takedowns here. Now they've both got jiu-jitsu in their arsenal, but I think these two men like to stand and trade. and it could be a really good fight. It could be. I would assume that it's definitely going to be much much better than the 2014 bout that they had together, where Dustin was stopped in the first round. I think this one will be just so much better. Dustin's a lot more experienced. They both like to stand and trade, and it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top and whether sort of Poirier can get McGregor's respect with the power that he can now generate. Because when McGregor hit Poirier early on in the 2014 fight, he was wobbled, and he realized the power quite early on, and sort of once he got hit a couple of times, he was on wobbly legs, and you kind of could feel it coming. Whereas he's been in a few slugfests now, maybe he's more used to it and maybe more adapted to it. But it'll be an interesting, really interesting fight. One thing that I could maybe see making the difference, and I'll probably make a prediction because I usually try and do it with these things. Not that they're hardly ever right, but Poirier does get hit more. McGregor's good at sort of head movement, slipping the punches. Poirier's been in a few wars. He does like to stand and trade. You think of the Max Holloway fight, even the Dan Hooker fight more recently, a real war as well. On the feet. So, he does get hit more, does Dustin Poirier, and the problem with McGregor is that he has got that sort of left hand that's nuclear. When it touches people's chins, it causes problems. And, there's not too many men that have taken a shot clean from McGregor and moved forward and came back at him. So, other than Nate Diaz, but that man's fucking Terminator. So, it'll be interesting. We sort of know that McGregor also can tire. He definitely can. He usually does his best work in the first two rounds. So Poirier has to navigate those sort of deep waters, and then Poirier has got good stamina. Poirier can really really go, and if he can get this fight, this is maybe where the difference could be for Poirier. He's been in a lot of 5-round fights now. He's went the distance, and you think of the Max fight, the Dan Hooker fight, even Justin Gaethje, I think, went into the fourth. So he, McGregor does tire. It's sort of a trade-off. Usually these people that have the big knockout power and stuff, it's a trade-off. Sometimes they can tire quicker. Some of the guys that have no knockout power can punch for days. You think of the likes of somebody like Nate Diaz there. So McGregor could tire in the first couple of rounds. That's when he does his best work. In the first two rounds, McGregor does his best work there. And then if Poirier can navigate them waters and get through this match, this fight could turn into a real slugfest. And the third, fourth, and fifth round, if it goes that far, could be fantastic. It could be really, really good. Poirier does nearly get stronger as the fight goes on. And it could be fantastic. It could be really good, It could be a really, really good fight. And it'll just be interesting to see where both these fighters are at so far on in their career. And so far back, 6-7 years ago since they fought each other. So it's going to be an interesting one. I'm really looking forward to it. As I said, maybe cardio's on Poirier's side, but he does get hit more. So it's going to be interesting. A prediction. Not that they matter. I don't know. I feel like maybe McGregor might stop him in the second. I really like Dustin Poirier. I'm really a big fan of his. I watched Fightville, which was a documentary put out in 2011 when he was sort of the main character in it, and it was on sort of indie, mixed martial arts circuits, and was way before the UFC. So I do like Dustin, but I think Dustin's really, really, really good. He's really, really good. Wins over Max Holloway and stuff. But I think, McGregor is sort of the very best of the very best as far as the UFC goes. There's sort of maybe 6, 7, 8, 10 men and women within the UFC roster now that are probably at the very, very top. They're very far ahead of their competition. You think of like Israel Adesanya, John Jones, McGregor, Khabib. They are the very best of the very best. And And Dustin's great. I really like Dustin, but I think the McGregor could probably just come out on top on this one. And it's no slight against Dustin in any way, shape, or form. He's had a great career. But I think just McGregor's very good. He's very, very good. The problem with him this last, as I said, this last while is, he made all the money in the world. He achieved everything he needed to. So motivation, I think, for him was an issue. He made all the money. He had 2-weight world champion, had the massive fight with Floyd Mayweather in boxing. The thing was the Khabib fight, and he ended up coming back to it. But I think that he himself, and I think everybody kind of knows that he wasn't in the right mindset, and he wasn't taking it seriously enough. That fight, I don't think that was the best of Conor McGregor that you've seen. So I think that he took some time off after that, and he sort of seemed to have regained the sort of early motivation that he had earlier in his career when he was tearing through the featherweight and lightweight divisions, and he's got himself really knuckled down and got himself into great shape again. And I think it's all for a redemption fight with Khabib. I think that McGregor will win this fight, and then that sets up the possibility of Khabib McGregor 2. I don't think McGregor performed his best in that fight, but he still went to the 4th round with Khabib. They talk about the takedowns and stuff, but his takedown defense in that fight was good and stuff as well. But I don't think that he was, he didn't offer much offensively in that fight, and I don't think he was just in the right shape, right headspace, right mindset in that fight. So if he comes through this, the potential is that, you have McGregor Khabib 2, which again would just be the biggest fight in the UFC, especially after everything that happened the last time. And that could be really, really interesting. And I know that Dana White's been... There's a tractor. I know that Dana White has been sort of... I don't know if there's any official news yet, actually, on what has happened, but they've had meetings, Dana and Khabib, to see if he'll come back. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if, McGregor can... he'll probably go into his bag of insulting him again, maybe a little bit or whatever, and trying to draw him out and trying to get him to come back and fight him again. But that's what Dana wants as well. Dana wants the big, big fight. And, McGregor has to go through Poirier to get that. I think he will. I think that he might get him a 2nd round stoppage, possibly. And then that sets up the super fight again against Khabib, if Dana White and McGregor can get him out of retirement to do so. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Fight's this Saturday night. It's in Fight Island. So it maybe will be on earlier in the evening. I need to double check what time it's on. But yeah, Fight Island, Abu Dhabi again. And a big fight. The rest of the card's interesting. Dan Hooker is fighting in this card. As well. He's fighting. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a good fight. And I think I'll take McGregor in the 2nd. I think. But yeah. Another one of these videos. Done and dusted. As I said, I was stupid, didn't think about just plugging the fucking podcast equipment in and recording it at the same time, because I know people sort of listen to the podcast when they're at work and stuff, and if I'm only putting out YouTube videos, then that kind of sucks. So I've been doing both now, so that's what I'm at. Just plugged in the podcast equipment, and so if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, give the video a like. Throw your predictions in the comments if you fancy it, and you hit the bell for any notifications for any new videos or whatever, I think. And to anybody that's listening, we're back. Well, as I said, we're trying to make do as best we can. I've been doing videos on our YouTube channel and stuff like that. So Irish Guys, I think it's just Irish Guys on YouTube, but it's the Irish Guys podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Podbean. I've been doing a few of these, so if you're a regular podcast listener or you're further away and didn't know that we're, putting out videos on the YouTube channel to tide us over with lockdown and restrictions, go over, watch the YouTube videos. The best thing to do is follow our Instagram page. It's where we let everybody know what we have out. If it is a Spotify recording or whatever, or a YouTube video, it's to let you know. But yeah, that'll do us. As I said, hopefully we'll be back soon and everything sort of picks up a wee bit. But thanks for tuning in, and that'll do. That'll finish me up here. Cheers.